Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan MS Pearce. Ukraine War News Update, third part there for the 22nd of December 2024. I am just going to do a quick geopolitics update before I shoot to the pub for a couple of Christmas ales with my friends. So looking forward to that. I just want to give you an update to begin with regard to the trucks that we're fundraising for, and I just want to give out a massive thanks to whoever donated, and this happened 4 or 5 nights ago and I told you, but I just want to say again because it was a huge thing. 5,000 euros to this was incredible. Also Christoph from Switzerland, 1,500 euros as well, and other people who have donated huge numbers as well. And it's not just those who have donated huge numbers, it's those who have donated little amounts and everywhere in between, because you donate what you can, and that's incredibly meaningful, no matter how much that is. But yeah, just massive thanks to you all for contributing to this fundraiser. We've done such an amazing job. I mean, David there, some of these really big numbers on the list here on the donor wall. Nick Quaid, 500 euros. Colin McKinney, 200 euros. Lots of 100s, lots of just very small amounts that people can afford. Joe Hales, a legend that Joe Hales, and Just Da Vinci. My goodness, you guys are legends. Mark Biscuit, all of the people who are just such amazing supporters continually, but those who have really dug deep as well. Massive thanks to everyone who has contributed to this. You are all just tremendously awesome people. There is another really big one. I think here it is, David as well. And I don't know who donated the 5,000, but just thank you so much. It's incredibly, incredibly powerful. The other thing that I want to just go through is from my last video today, which is just hilarious what happens here. So just to let you know, to remind you that ATP Geo, atpgeo.com or atputub.erg.ui, but it goes through to atpgeo.com. There is on my ATP Distilled website a summary of each of the videos I do. So just to remind you exactly what this is. So the website looks like this, and when you go to the different videos, if you don't have time to watch the videos, you can just skim read what is distilled from these videos in terms of what the AI picks up, and the AI is amazing, right? Benny Pie has sorted this out. It's just incredible. So it summarizes all my videos into chapters, and it also gets humor and Chinese room experiment. Thought experiment notwithstanding, it sort of scare quotes understands humor. It can recognize humor and treats it accordingly. Now, if you saw my last video about the priest who was talking about getting some video clips from his wife, or his wife was telling me she'd seen video clips and that a Russian soldier had resurrected. It gets the humor. If you remember the clip I did, this is incredible AI here. So Russian Orthodox priest claims Chinese soldiers resurrected and fighting for Russia is the chapter title. So Jonathan discusses a video. Remember, this is all AI. AI has just done this audio. None of it's visual. It's done purely on the audio. Jonathan discusses a video featuring a Russian Orthodox priest with an impressive beard, in brackets, who claims that there are no atheists in war. The priest asserts that during Lent he watched a video about a Chinese man participating in a special military operation who was shot in the stomach, had his intestines shredded, died, and was then resurrected. According to the priest, St. Luke of Crimea appeared to the man and healed him completely. The man and his relatives were then baptized into the Orthodox Church. Jonathan, with his trademark humor, suggests that the Russians are now using zombie armies, which he considers a potential game changer. He jokingly concludes that because the priest's wife saw some clips online, it must be true. He sarcastically thanks the bearded man for the information, implying that all conspiracy theories might be true. Jonathan humorously questions whether this is something to worry about and if research into resurrecting troops should be conducted. In a segue, Jonathan promotes his dystopian fiction books, Survival of the Fittest Metamorphosis and Survival of the Fittest Adaptation, available on Amazon. He invites listeners to read his work and share their thoughts on his writing about pandemics and possibly resurrected soldiers. I am staggered that how AI could do that to that segment of the video. It's just brilliant. So if you don't have time to watch my videos, you can always go, or if you can't watch them in say you're at work and you want to be able to just read them, then you can read my videos. They are all, one and all, are transcribed. Well, they're not transcribed. There is a transcription that goes through it and then distills it into these segments. It's just really good. So go and check out atpgeo.com. Anyway, let's go to geopolitics. Sorry for that. Sorry, not sorry. German aid to Ukraine says the rumours that Scholz is going to visit Putin are false. Fake news. I was going to read the whole thread, but take it from me, Scholz is not going to visit Putin. Right. Trump has sent a message to Zelensky to start thinking about a ceasefire and the idea of losing all the occupied territories, according to El País, the Spanish newspaper. According to the senior EU source, the war will end at the negotiating table, perhaps sooner than expected. And now it's a question of defining what a Ukrainian victory will be. Well, yeah, the victory is the operative word there. Trump has said, I'll wait for a meeting with Putin to resolve the war in Ukraine. So, wow. Okay, let's actually listen to this because this is super important. This is Trump at a Turning Point USA conference.
Including foreign policy, these crazy wars that we're in. One of the things I want to do, and quickly, and President Putin said that he wants to meet with me as soon as possible. So we have to wait for this, but we have to end that war. That war is a horrible.
The slight issue I have there is that people are clapping him meeting with Putin as if, and I know where that's coming from. It's not that this is good for Ukraine. This is an end to the war. And just fulfilling what Trump had previously said. But notice he's not mentioned Zelensky, he's not mentioned the Ukrainians, he's not mentioned Putin invading. This is ending the war, stop the killing. I need to meet. Putin's said he wants a meeting with me.
The soldiers, the number of soldiers being killed. It's a flat plane, and the bullets are going, and there's powerful bullets, powerful guns.
What?
And the only thing that's going to stop them is a human body. They go. Dead flat land. Nobody's ever seen anything like it.
World War II. Flat plain. I mean, it is quite flat in Zaporizhia, but elsewhere not so much.
Millions of soldiers have died now.
Millions of soldiers have died. He's gone from other figures previously that were not millions to now millions. I don't know what to think about this.
We're seeing numbers that are just crazy. Got to stop it. It's ridiculous. Would have never happened if I was president. That war would have never happened.
Anyway, all the usual stuff there, but just smashing around these figures and then saying that he's going to meet with Putin. So, again, to worry about the situation where Zelensky appears not to be involved in the future of his own country there. That what Putin's going to meet with Trump to decide the future of Ukraine. So those two countries, the US and Russia, get to decide what happens in Ukraine. Like, where the frick is the agency of Ukraine here? So I know you guys are always whinging that many of you that I talk too much about Trump, but he's the one that's saying that he's going to sort this war out and it's going to end. So, like, to not talk about him would be insane because he's incredibly important in this, but he's also has a really problematic outlook. So we heard that he's going to continue giving aid to Ukraine. Then he says stuff like this, and you're like, I don't know what to think. He's all over the shop. Right, Georgia. It's incredible that these protests are still going on, and that's absolutely excellent. Let's get a sense of the size of these crowds. So we've got, lots of crowds still amassing in Georgia. Lots of Christmas lights up and people with their own lights, etc., etc. Pretty huge crowds. Magical evening in Tbilisi. There's an unprecedented wave of marches throughout the day. Culminated on Rustaveli Avenue. Over 20 marches took place. 200,000 people, nearly 200,000 people in front of Parliament. So that was not today, that was yesterday. So I was hoping that this would continue and that there would still be significant numbers. That appears to be the case. Look at some of these pictures. Absolutely incredible to see so many people gathered in Tbilisi, that this is still, there is still a really strong sentiment here for these protests and marches. But of course, if they give up now, then there's no beef no issue for the Georgian Dream administration. This, unfortunately, needs to be just until they effect a change. Protests in Georgia against the reversal of the country's pro-European course have continued for over 3 weeks now. After a pause, the protesters took to the streets en masse again on December the 21st. One of the main demands is the recall of the parliamentary elections that the pro-Russian Georgian Dream Party won. The OSCE monitoring mission noted a combination of voter intimidation, media bias, unequal conditions, and violations of ballot secrecy during the elections, which did not meet fundamental democratic standards or OSCE commitments necessary for free and fair elections. The opposition believes that the official conclusion creates grounds for to host a re-election. On video, Kurumi War Dance, a dance of the Adjari region that calls forth the spirits of Georgian fighters of the past centuries. The dance reminds us that in order to have peace, one must be ready for war. And that's what they're doing there. And certainly, you saw the beginning of that march and the holding hands and doing that kind of interesting step at the beginning there. So really good to see them still doing that. The European Union is preparing a 16th package of sanctions, as I've already said, against Russia. It should include, quote, measures against specific sectors of the Russian economy that have not yet been covered or have been covered insufficiently. This is really good news. Europe is so important in holding Russia to account, along with the US and the UK, indeed, EU and the UK and other nations as well. It's just, it needs to be, the more the merrier to hold Russia to account for what they've done. Now, Viktor Orban has said that Hungary is negotiating to preserve Russian gas transit through Ukraine. As Ukraine's gas transit agreement nears its end, Hungary's leader reveals that talks to maintain the crucial supply route through ownership restructuring are taking place. So we heard yesterday that they were thinking about some loophole, some new way of thinking, creative way of thinking to get around this problem. I've got an opinion that I think Ukraine should allow gas transit through Ukraine to Hungary and Slovakia. And hear me out. I think they should allow it and use it as a massive bit of leverage and say to Orban and Fico, and this is honestly, this should happen. We will give you gas through Ukraine if you do not vote against a single thing that does not benefit Ukraine in the EU. If you vote against it in the EU, we will cut, and write it down into a contract, we will cut the gas off straight away. If you vote against military aid to Ukraine in the EU, if you vote against financial assistance to Ukraine in the EU, you will not get gas. This is a huge bit of leverage. It should absolutely just be done, but really brazen with it. I think that's worth paying for. I think that's worth allowing gas through Ukraine, Russian gas through Ukraine. So Russia, okay, they might make some money out of gas going to Hungary and Slovakia, but Hungary and Slovakia will not vote against anything that supports Ukraine aid. I would take that. I think that's brilliant. Go and do it. If you want me to be diplomat, I'll do it. Just provide me a wheelchair. Okay. Hungarian kleptocrat Viktor Orban. So let's talk about Viktor Orban a little bit. Has his, says Jane Kiev, is often rhetorical, his disgusting daughter holding the cash he loots for his fiefdom, now the third poorest in the EU. So Hungary is the third poorest nation in the EU. It's Orban has claimed he only has $25,000 in savings, and yet he has multi-millionaire families. Orban's multi-millionaire daughter quotes, and look at this video of all the luxury that they have. More and more people are afraid of the word luxury. This is a PR video of Hotel Dorothea, crown jewel of the Orban business empire. Hungary's EU presidency heavily promoted this hotel to EU delegations as a preferred booking choice. In other words, the emoluments clause in America, when Trump made Secret Service stay in his hotels and made foreign dignitaries coming over to visit the US when he was president, 2016 to 2020, they stayed at Trump Towers, they stayed at Mar-a-Lago, whatever, and he got money out of them and charged them 3 times what the normal prices would be. That's how Trump broke the law 2016 to 2020. I think he should have been done for that big time. I think Trump's emoluments clause issues were really significant. The Orban family's Hotel Dorothea was suggested by the government as a place to stay during Hungary's EU presidency, Director 36 revealed. The family company, BDPST, owning the hotel, received $105.2 million in loans from state-owned and connected banks. This is old Orban, king of the cane toads, just making money off his position as Sith overlord. or whatever he is, prime minister. And here we have another example, just from the air. This is how his family live. It's a mini Versailles estate. Okay, everyone should live their own life. I live mine, says Viktor Orban, replying today when questioned about having only €25,000 in savings, while his family members are multimillionaires enjoying luxurious lifestyles, getting paid from the state coffers, it appears, in some indirect manner. But, they live the life of Riley there, a life of luxury, and one thinks there is some kind of kleptocracy going on in Hungary. Now, just to remind you how in high regard Viktor Orban is held in the US. Now, this isn't topical, as in this hasn't been said in the last week. This was said in May 2024, but this is your incoming vice president talking about Viktor Orban.
Successfully dealing with the left-wing domination of universities is Viktor Orban's approach in Hungary. I think his way has to be the model for us, not to eliminate universities, but to give the choice between survival or taking a much less biased approach to teaching.
So this is Hungary that's basically taken over universities or shut down liberal universities like George Soros's is a University of Eastern Europe or something. There's been a real attack on education in Hungary. And JD Vance seems to want to replicate that.
Control of state universities and put them in foundations that were then run by his allies. Is that what you're advocating be done in the United States?
Well, Margaret, what you're seeing in the United States actually is that universities are controlled by left-wing foundations.
So he didn't answer that question. He pivoted to his own talking point, which is really not so true.
They're not controlled by the American taxpayer, and yet the American taxpayer is sending hundreds of billions of dollars to these universities every single year.
I don't want taxpayers controlling education necessarily. Is that what you're advocating for, federal government?
Margaret, what I'm advocating for is for taxpayers to have a say in how their money is spent. Universities are part of a social contract in this country. They educate our children. They produce important intellectual property. They get a lot of money because of it. But if they're not educating our children well and they're layering the next generation down in mountains of...
So what he wants to do is dictate what the universities teach, or they don't get money. In other words, this is an autocratic, it's not the free market of ideas. It's like, if you don't teach exactly how we think you should teach and what you should teach, then you won't get subsidies. So you can make an argument for that for sure. Like, this is a complex argument, but what you've got to understand is the intention behind this, which is, I think, really autocratic, is using the blueprint of Viktor Orban in Hungary, which is a really bad I mean, that is democratic backsliding and autocracy 101 going on there, to try and affect a change in the US in a similar manner.
Student debt, then they're not meeting their end of the bargain. I think it's totally reasonable to say there needs to be a political solution to that problem.
Well, America's universities still attract talent from around the world, as you've went to one of America's very top schools.
Look, there's still good things about American universities, but it's going in the wrong direction, Margaret.
But Viktor Orban in particular, as you know, I mean, he rewrote the Constitution, he neutered the courts, he has tried to control the media. These are not necessarily conservative principles. So why would you want to mimic him?
Well, look, I'm not endorsing every single thing that Viktor Orban has ever done. I don't know everything he's ever done. What I do think is on the university principle, the idea that taxpayers should have some influence in how their money is spent at these universities, it's a totally reasonable thing. And I do think that
what Viktor Orban has done with universities is not reasonable.
Learn from the United States.
Well, he was just...
And it's really dangerous when this guy's held up as a paragon of democratic virtue, or at least governance virtue, when he has done such tremendous harm to the democracy in Hungary. And you're worried about free and fair elections coming around next time. He has taken the courts in the wrong direction. He has taken the media in the wrong direction. The control over the judiciary, the media, and the education system is really autocratic. And I just don't think that the US should be looking to Orban, or anyone should be looking to Viktor Orban. I get attacked for slagging off Trump, but and not slagging off other. I slag off Viktor Orban and Robert Fico really quite frequently. What I end up slagging off are autocrats and autocrat wannabes. So I look at autocrats like Xi Jinping, like Putin, like Kim Jong-un, right? Obviously going to criticise them. Viktor Orban, Robert Fico, obviously going to criticise them. And the reason I'm criticising Trump is because he wants to emulate that. So I'm not criticising Trump just because he has all the hallmarks of an autocrat. And he's trying to do those things to the American political system that we happily criticise in Viktor Orban and Robert Fico. Like, almost all of you are happy to allow me to criticise Viktor Orban, but when it comes to someone like Donald Trump, you're not so happy, some of you. But then you've got the Trump administration. Like, Trump accepted Orban into Mar-a-Lago and accepted his open endorsement for presidency, and said he's like the very greatest leader. You know, you've got Trump consistently saying Viktor Orban's this great leader, and yet you're happy to let me slag off Viktor Orban. So there's some double standards going on there. Right, Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico has arrived in Moscow and is meeting with Putin. So this is what needs to be criticised. Here's another autocrat wannabe going to Putin and cozying up with the dictator there. According to Russian media, Fico threatened Ukraine over halting gas transit starting on January the 1st, 2025. He is now obviously going cap in hand to Putin there. Now, going to the UK, we've got Zaluzhnyi, who is Valery Zaluzhnyi, the former commander-in-chief for the Ukrainian Armed Forces, is now ambassador to the UK. He's held a meeting with the ambassador to Israel, or ambassador of Israel to the UK. The main topics of discussion were the development of bilateral cooperation between Ukraine and Israel, as well as the exchange of experience on security. Now, I don't, so what type thing. This just made me think. I hadn't thought about this before, and sorry for being so naive or ignorant, but actually, I always think about doing diplomacy with other countries as your ambassador goes to that country, and you're doing these bilateral communication. Your bilateral diplomacy is always happening, and you have all of these diplomats all around doing these bilateral conversations. But I forget that somewhere like London, you are going to have diplomats from all around the world, and you have the opportunity to do multifarious diplomacy all the time. There's nothing to stop Zaluzhnyi, on behalf of Ukraine, going and meeting with Israel, the Israeli ambassador, and doing work with Israel. So you don't have to just do that through your ambassador to Israel. You can do it to your ambassador to the UK. So there are loads of ways that we can have conversations with other nations. And I know that might be obvious, but I'd never really just thought about that. And it evidently happens, as we're hearing that Zelensky's met with Israel. And there's a lot that can be, as controversial as the Israeli war has been. They have done certain things very kind of well. They've done things very dubiously in terms of human rights and killing civilians in Gaza, etc., etc. And also strikes on Beirut, where they have hammered Hezbollah, but at the expense of quite a lot of civilians as well. So, yeah, okay, I don't want to get into the moral long weeds of that, but Israel have also done a really good job of taking out Hezbollah and taking out and with these bombs that have gone off in the pages, they and you can talk about the morality of that, but they've done a really good job for a very small country of affecting the power dynamics in the whole region. And Syria, it could be as a direct result of that. So Assad has now gone, and there was a lack of support from Hezbollah. Why was that? Because Israel have been doing all sorts of stuff there. So loads of dynamics going on there, and Israel also have their own very functional arms, military industrial complex that I'm sure Ukraine would like to have support from. So these kind of conversations evidently are going to be very important. AFD. So moving on to Germany. This is Pekka Kaliniemi saying the AFD is 100% pro-Kremlin. One of their aides even worked for the FSB and brought in money from Russia for a lawsuit that would delay military aid to Ukraine. There you go. So we've got a Michael Weiss and Christo Grozev article here. I don't know Roman Dobrokov, but the far-right Bundestag aide and his rapping FSB case officer. So you can go and read about that. But what I want to do is spend some time going through this, and I know it's from 2023, it's a Vacnick Soup one on just the AFD and their connections to Russia. So I'll probably leave that for tomorrow, but worth looking into. Now, talking about the AFD, we then had Elon Musk controversially coming out and supporting the AFD. It's interesting to see that a major Tesla investor has Ross Gerber who holds over $100 million in Tesla stock, has slammed Elon Musk for backing a neo-Nazi linked party in Germany.
Voicing support for Germany's AfD party, which has ties to neo-Nazi rhetoric. The AfD party, of course, tweeting out it's thrilled by this endorsement. What do you make of this?
You know, my dad was in Germany in 1961 when the Berlin Wall went up, and my family fought in World War II, and I'm of Jewish descent, and I find it to be disgusting, to be honest. There's really no reason for it, and I don't understand how this needs to be part of his rhetoric when his job, in my perspective, is being CEO of Tesla. Really love the CEO with a $100 billion pay package to be focused on the company he's supposed to be running.
Do you think he's qualified to be playing this
$100 million pay package? He needs to be concentrating on what he's doing.
Relations.
Well, is Trump qualified? I mean, come on. I'm going to make it clear. I care about climate. I invested in Tesla, not Elon Musk. I invested in Tesla because its solution for climate, which is the biggest issue that humans face, in my mind, over the next decade or more.
Musk voiced. So
that's interesting. Now, I am going to then not push back on him, but it's interesting that he's got one job as a $100 million salaried or whatever CEO of Tesla to run Tesla. Actually, he's in the middle of government and he is affecting change in government policy, which benefits Tesla. Like, get a load of this. So you know that Musk basically stopped the continuing resolution for the budget from happening. Then there was an alternative put forward that Republicans weren't a fan of, and then a bunch of them voted against that. And then there was this last minute deal that was fudged through, but it had some concessions in it. Well, guess what those concessions were? It is no coincidence that Musk has done all these things and the China things were dropped out of that third one that went through. Wow. So, did Musk tank a spending bill because it would have harmed his business in China? It is incontrovertible that a billionaire, and this is coming from the Prospect, billionaire who has a bunch of investments in China and wants to make more, all of a sudden disrupted a normal congressional process that was going to restrict that investment with a bunch of lies from his media platform. And lo and behold, when the new funding bill emerged, the outbound investment feature was dropped. In fact, all traces of provisions related to China were removed from the bill. It's absolutely despicable. Now, I just want to point this out to you, which is how this is thoroughly controversial. So Representative Rosa DeLauro criticised Elon Musk about this, and Elon Musk then turned on her to say, turns out Washington DC swamp creatures are real, and he basically calls DeLauro a swamp creature and then makes her look like some kind of evil demon there. Republican spending bill proposal is amazing for China and for Musk, is all you need to know. So the spending bill that has now been changed because Musk stopped that first spending bill now takes out. So when you've got Trump talking about being hard on China, and then you have Musk behind Trump getting the spending bill changed and then getting the things that are being hard on China dropped so that Musk can do business with regard to lithium into China, then you've got to be really, really worried. It's absolutely incredible. Bipartisan agreement. So, Josh Rogan originally said legislation setting new rules for outbound US investment in China has been included in the continuing resolution. It's a compromise of the ideas put forth by McCall, Meeks and Barr. This is a good thing. Americans shouldn't be funding China's blah, 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 blah. And then Josh Rogan later says, after that was killed by Musk, never mind, the bipartisan agreement to strengthen oversight of investment in sensitive technologies in China has been dropped from the CR for no reason. Xi Jinping must not believe his luck. Thanks, Elon. And that's because it benefits Elon Musk. So when I talk about kleptocracy and autocracy and unelected oligarchs and oligarchies and an unelected oligarch in the center of the White House, this is what I'm telling you about. This is what I'm talking about. That should be really worrying. At the same time, interesting situation that Jake Bro says, so we're now going to war with Panama, checks notes again. I don't know what's got into Trump. He said he's like the man of peace and no wars and blah, blah, blah. And he keeps threatening people. So, this is Donald Trump again. The United States has a vested interest in the secure, efficient and reliable operation of the Panama Canal. True. And that was always understood. We would and will never let it fall into the wrong hands. It was not given for the benefit of others, but merely as a token of cooperation with us in Panama. If the principles, both moral and legal, of this magnanimous gesture, he didn't write this, of giving are not followed, then we will demand that the Panama Canal be returned to us in full and without question. To the officials of Panama, please be guided accordingly. So he's threatening to retake the Panama Canal in Panama. This is some pretty incredible stuff. Anyway, moving on. So Finland, Sweden, Italy and Greece, interesting bunch of countries here, at a summit in Finnish Lapland are to support Ukraine for, quote, as long and as much as it takes, according to Finnish Prime Minister Petteri Orpo. So that's awesome. You've got Greece on board, Italy as well. That's super important. Obviously, Finland and Sweden were pretty used to. Now, French aid to Ukraine is quoting RBC News Ukraine here and saying, in recent years, French President Emmanuel Macron has become one of Ukraine's most active allies and was the first to initiate the deployment of Western troops. I'm not going to read this to you, but just to let you know that there are some in Ukraine, RBC Ukraine here, clearly thinking that actually Emmanuel Macron is a man who's doing an awful lot, at least rhetorically, for Ukraine and possibly behind the scenes. I wonder whether history will look back on this war and think that Emmanuel Macron see that he might have been more important than we gave him credit for being. I was criticising at the beginning of the war, saying he was trying to have these phone calls with Putin to kind of be that peace broker. And I was saying I think he's placing himself as the kingmaker in Europe. Actually, we find out later that Zelensky asked him to do that. He was doing that because Zelensky asked him, not because he was trying to be the kingmaker. So that criticism of Emmanuel Macron might have been a mischaracterization there. And I think, given it's a really tumultuous political scene in France at the moment, he's probably doing as well as he can possibly do in trying to get things moving the right way. Okay, that's enough from me. Thank you very much for... you can go and read, by the way, a whole piece on him in RBC Ukraine that talks about how he's got to where he is, kind of biography, and then in terms of Ukraine. So it's a pretty interesting piece there. Anyway, thank you for watching. Really appreciate your support. Please like, subscribe and share. Please go and check out atpgeo.com when you can, and also help that out with the trucks for Ukraine. Really appreciate it. The links should always be in the videos I produce. So the donor box link, check it out below. Bye-bye.